Now it is.
Are we live?
Are we live?
We are now.
Okay, cool. That's cool. We'll cut that in post. All right. Good evening, everybody. My name's Elijah. Welcome to Dancing Dragons Live. Dancing Dragons Live is Dancing Dragons Coaching Collective's weekly live stream where you get real talk from real coaches about real life situations and problems. Again, my name's Elijah. We got an awesome panel tonight, and we are talking about psychological life hacks. We've all brought a couple of nuggets from our lives and things that we've learned to share with you that you can use in practical terms with the real people in your life. So without further ado, I will toss it over to Will.
Do you want to know how to get the girl of your dreams? Do you want to get that interview? Do you want to get that job? Well, tonight we're going to give you a couple hints on how to do that. And again, find us at DancingDragons.cc, DancingDragons.cc, DancingDragons.cc 3 times. That's a psychological hack right there for you, so it stays in your memory. Go check us out. Share the video. We are live every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard, so stay tuned and go through our last couple of videos. But yeah, it's going to be really cool because we have coaches coming from different segments, and we're all going to learn something a little bit different. Personally, I'm a little most curious about what Carrie wants to say, and I think Carrie is going to take us from the base of things. So Carrie, if you want to just give us the gist of how you started looking at this thing, like what's your lens? Where do you bring into this?
Yeah, so my lens was more a towards the self kind of mental health, how to rework your thoughts, how to ground yourself to make the best decisions in life, and how to just kind of de-stress and not freak out. Because I think we're all inclined to have negative self-talk and beat ourselves down and think the worst and have this kind of scarcity mindset. So just how to shift your mind and then shift your thoughts and then shift your reality. So my favorite quote is from Wayne Dyer. It's when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So I can just leave that there.
I use that all the time. I love that.
And so what does that do? If you and Rona and Coach Amy want to chime in, Elijah's going to shut up for a while. But if you guys want to, what does that really mean, right? And if you could, Carrie, before you toss it to the other ladies here, what does that mean, right? Because what is that scarcity mentality? I think that almost all of us are in a scarcity mentality. If you could give us what that is, and then maybe one thing, like you mentioned there, from starting from that quote, how do we kind of, what is that, and how do we take one step out of that scarcity mindset?
Right. So I think, and as Rona mentioned before I even hopped on, is that our mind has a negativity bias. So it's kind of, we're working, our brain is working from past pain experiences and filtering through that. So we have to intentionally choose new thoughts. We have to choose a new filter so thoughts can sift through. So if we're thinking, I grew up, I didn't have enough money, I don't have enough for my nails or to buy a new car or something. So that's scarcity mindset, thinking you don't have enough. That might not be true. It may be true, but there may be a more empowering way to look at that. Because if we stick with, I don't have enough, the scarcity mindset, we're going to act from that place, whether things are true or not. So if we shift to, I might not have this, but what do I have? And what can I do with what I do have? So we're focusing on what is true. And when we shift from that negativity, our mind can start to look for solutions rather than problems.
Yeah, and one thing before, let's go to Coach Amy next, but it's so true. Like if you're sick or you're worried, you literally can't grow, right? On a physiological level, you're worried about yourself, and you're stuck. So that's one of the things that you can do. And one of the things I like to say is some people be like, oh man, I got to go to work today. Oh man, why don't you say, hey, I get to go to work today, right? Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite quotes of all time is, gratitude is the open door to abundance. We all have things right now. Anybody watching this, even if you're in a really bad position, we do have things that we can be grateful for. So yeah, Carrie, excellent point. That's a great way to start that. What's your thought on that, Coach Amy, and any other psychological tricks? I know we were talking beforehand and you had a pretty good one, and I think everyone should employ that trick.
Yeah, so my first comment is, so yes, we do start with negative biases as human beings, but one of the things that can shift your mindset pretty quickly is, and this is going to sound crazy probably, but is telling yourself a positive affirmation every time you pass through a doorway. Has anyone ever heard of that before? That practice?
No, that's actually cool.
So, because we enter through so many doorways in the course of any given day of our lives, even within our own homes, right? So it works very fast if you do it, if you practice it. It does change your mind shift pretty dramatically, pretty quickly. So just a little side note there. And one psychological life hack I do that my grandma taught me when I was really little, and I just always remembered it, is when you're feeling sorry for yourself, do something nice for someone else. And I practice this religiously. I followed it my whole life. It works every time. It completely changes your mindset because you focus so much on the joy that you feel for whatever you've done for that other person. And all of a sudden, whatever you're feeling and all the bad things you're feeling and your thoughts just leave your mind because it's now occupied with joy. But for my psychological life hack that we talked about before is I thank people for who I want them to be. I don't focus on who they are in that moment. This works really well in work spaces. So when you have difficult people that you work with who maybe they don't respond very quick to email, maybe they're not very cooperative, maybe, there's, like in my case, I had somebody who was in a different department who is all those things. Plus she would try to push work on my team that I managed and that it clearly belonged in her department, right? So I would say she had a normal name. I won't say her name. I'll just call her Surly because she was surly. So we'll just say that's her name. So I was like, hey, Surly, I seriously appreciate all your help. I know you're super busy. Anytime I have an email, like you totally jump on it and I just appreciate you. And like, you're so cooperative. And like, I really appreciate the teamwork and like collaboration with you all the time, whatever. But like, I say it now. I'm not saying it as eloquently as I said it then in the moment, but I frame it like she really is that. And like, I truly believe it. So I say it in a really sincere way. Meanwhile, she was a nightmare. I mean, if I had a pill with her face on it in my office, I'd punch it every day. I mean, I really couldn't stand working with her, but I just thanked her for who I needed her to be. And you know what? She rose to the occasion and she became that person. And our working relationship got a lot better. And so that worked for me. Instead of being like, hey, how come you're so uncooperative? How come you never help me out? How come you don't answer my emails? Why are you pushing work on my team? And that's how a lot of people lead, right? They get negative and they just come at somebody and they're like, I need to confront this. And it's like, no, why don't you just plant some positive seeds and then, see what grows.
Yeah, and actually Elijah has a story about this very topic he told me a while ago. So Elijah, if you want to elaborate on that story and then throw it over to Rona, because Rona has a very unique perspective coming to this as well.
Yeah, so when I was in the Army, I like had become a sergeant, and I was going to get like my first squad, right? And it's kind of like a big deal, You're gonna be the squad leader for the first time, and all these other sergeants, they try to like give you advice and stuff, and it's mostly bad because these people are in the Army, And so, so anyway, they really tried. I don't know why I was like considered pretty competent. I was held in high esteem in my unit. And so they just gave me like all the worst soldiers in the squad, right? Now, by the way, if you were in my squad and you're listening to this, I don't mean like worse in real life. I mean worst on paper, right? So but like in the Army, you have like a physical fitness score, right? And my squad was by far the worst physical fitness score. Like half of my soldiers were failing and like on the verge of getting kicked out of the Army. It was crazy. But in 3 months, I got him to be the highest average PT score. So, but this one soldier they gave me had been in the Army longer than me, but he was like a private still because he kept getting in trouble and losing rank. Like he'd get punished, right? So he kept getting like Article 15s, I think they're called. Yeah. So a bunch of people kept telling me like, man, you got to we'll call him Private Snuffy, right? Oh, you got to lay down the law when it comes to Private Snuffy, right? You got to show him who's boss. Day one, you got to make sure he knows you're going to be on his ass, right? So I did the exact opposite, right? So when you do your initial counseling session with all your soldiers, as you do as a squad leader, right? During his initial counseling session, I was like, hey, bro, I'm a brand new squad leader. You've been in the Army longer than me. I'm going to be leaning on you like a crutch. I'm going to really need your help, right? And the guy was amazing the entire time he was in my squad. And about 5 months later, they shuffled up the squads. They moved him out of my squad. And his new squad leader came over to me and was like, don't worry, I already talked to Private Snuffy. He knows not to pull any crap with me. And like 2 weeks later, that guy was in trouble again. So, if you like think highly of somebody and you put that on them, they're going to live up to that. They're going to want to live up to that. And it's also, if you're interested in this idea, there's a book called Whale Done about how they train whales, and it kind of goes over all the different reasons why this works. So,
yeah,
All
I
right,
had a
Rona,
teacher in high school that called me Smiley once. Saw me in the hallway. I smile a lot. Called me Smiley once, and for the rest of my time in high school, every time I saw him in the hallway, I always smiled.
mm-hmm.
So.
It becomes one of those self-fulfilling prophecies, and it's one of those things that you don't even realize is happening, and you want to live up to people's expectations. It's an innate human quality. All right, I know you've been chomping at the bit, Rona, and why don't, before you get into this a little bit,
I think I'm being very calm and patient.
Guys, if you could read the back things chats, Rona's like, get me on. I need to start the limelight. Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Shut these girls up.
Yeah, come on. But tell people about your background, because I think it's important the way you look at things. And I don't want to say it for you, but yeah, go ahead.
You could. That's okay. I know who I am.
Well, one of the things I want you to talk about is play and how important that is, right?
Yeah. Yes, I'm an expert in what's called purposeful and attuned play. Purposeful play is basically what it sounds like. It's doing I call them playtivities as opposed to activities, because I don't always like to use the word games. Games connote winners and losers, and depending on the situation, who you're coaching, or if you have a group of people, I coach and I consult. So I do corporate groups as well as one-on-one. So everything is not always a game. And sometimes exercises, you're like, bleh, so playtivity can be fun. And there's a reason for the riot, a method to the madness that they don't necessarily know until they're done. So you have a seemingly innocuous activity, playtivity. What did you notice about that? How did you notice a hierarchy? And there are a bunch of debrief questions that they, blows their minds, and all of a sudden they're laughing. They become open and fun. And there's what I call an adult mind and a childlike mind. It's also not childish, although that can happen. Childlike, it's also called the beginner's mindset. The adult mind judges. It thinks everyone thinks the way they do. And the adult mind is also deathly afraid of being judged. Whereas if you go into any kind of a situation, with an open childlike mindset, I don't know what's going to happen. This is going to be fun. This is going to be an adventure. Experiences, conversations, negotiations, anything can be made to feel less pressurized, less stressful, things like that. So, and I want to add to that, and perspective is everything. And when you attune to people by using this, you can't attune to a whole room because everyone's got different things on their mind and different experiences. So what it does allow you to do is read the room a little bit better. And then you can attune to that specific person who is not enjoying themselves or is a little bit nervous to, dip their toe in, and there are things you can do to subtly get them involved so that their psychological state is that much better. Allows them to be more productive. There's better team building. They listen better, and they are less afraid to ponder about the coaching questions that you ask. That make sense?
Yeah, I think the element of play is so important, and since the Industrial Revolution, especially here in the United States, it's all been work and work, and you're not working enough. But people forget how important play is for all primates, right? I mean, that's one of the main ways that we develop relationships with people. And I mean, just think about, everyone's had a job where maybe you worked with a good friend or someone that made you laugh, and the time's passing by. And then conversely, if you have somebody that's just like, and it goes back to what you guys are talking about with the mindset, once you've kind of built it up a person, like, oh man, you got a really bad boss. But now Coach Amy taught us, hey man, you are such a thoughtful boss. You let people have a day off and stuff. So people forget how important play is, and I think it's really important, and it underpins a lot of the dynamics that we have. Elijah.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to, like, I don't know, I feel like kind of like another way to say the adult mind and the childlike mind. The way I see it is like curiosity versus being jaded. I don't know. There's like this, like some of that, like I try not to say it too often. Sometimes I can't bite my tongue. But like, like it drives me crazy when I'm in public and I'll see like parents yelling at their kids for doing something that's just like what any normal kid would do. Like, like they see something cool and they're like, oh my God, that's cool. Right. And like, in my mind, it's like, if you keep yelling at your kid for being curious, then one day you might get your wish and they'll stop being curious, like, and that's just like a terrible thing to think about. Like, everybody wants their kid to be curious about stuff. And it's like, I get it. You want to keep them safe. I used to work in a bowling alley where like, I used to like actually set up the pins, right? Like I was the machine, right? And so, yeah. But you made really good money doing it. Everybody's like, that's a ridiculous job, right? But people would, every time they throw a ball, you have to pick up their pins and they're watching you do it. Then there's like, here's some money, man. Like you make tons of money in tips doing that job, right? But like the kids would want to come over and they want to see like me put the ball on the thing that just rolls it back, like they'd want to see that. And obviously they're little kids. They're worried like, oh, their fingers might get crushed or something like that. But it's like, I'm not going to crush your kids' fingers. People used to scream at their children, like out of nowhere. I'll just be doing my job, and all of a sudden somebody would be like, "Get away from it!" And it's like, it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to show them how to do it. I'm going to show them how to do it. Like I feel like we let our nerves. Like I'm a new parent, right? My son's 7 months old, right? Like I don't know how I'm going to keep this kid alive. He's kind of. He's off the walls. Like he's everywhere. Today he was trying to crawl up the steps. He's 7 months old, and so he got up one step by himself. I didn't help him at all. Right. But like, you're like the whole time you're like very nervous watching this happen. Right. So I totally understand, but like sometimes I think as parents, in order to foster this into adulthood, right, because your kids are going to become adults, is to just kind of let them be curious a little bit. Obviously, keep them safe, right? But you don't always have to be so strict with that kind of stuff. Let your kids like keep that childhood curiosity going throughout their life.
Yeah,
it's their job. Problem, right? Their job is to be a kid. Yeah. Sorry, Coach.
And that's the problem. We've all been like beaten into submission, like I talked about, since the Industrial Revolution, and we're not curious. We're all already jaded, and that's why I think this topic is so important, because these are things that you can do to kind of change that. And because of they killed curiosity, and now, hey, you have a question? I'll tell you right here in school, right? As soon as we're gonna rip you from your parents, and we already have the answers. Don't be curious, right? You don't have to be curious what the boss tells you. But so that's why this is so important, because we've been beaten to submission into the scarcity mindset, and these are some ways, tangible ways that you can get around it. I almost put this as a psychological hack. Maybe we can save this for later debating, but and I know Elijah is not, but I'm a firm believer in the law of attraction, which embodies some of these other things. So maybe as a flash round later, we can go around and talk about that. But okay, cool. Carrie's awesome. I knew it. All right. So, but okay. So let's talk about a few that we can use. Should we start with like dating, or in the workplace, or with the family and friends? Where do you guys want to take this? All right, I'm going to take it to dating. We're going to go dating first, because okay. So I have a couple.
I'll be back.
I have a couple, and okay.
Right,
so Rona will join. And guys, if you're just joining, share, like, and subscribe. Every Monday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, we are live with a variety of life coaches. We've had interviews. We've talked about a number of really cool topics. I always want to refer people. We're gonna have to change the name. It's DDL too, but it's me, Eliza, Megan on the thumbnail, and it's how to ace any interview. And then a week or two later, we interviewed J. Michael Springman, U.S. diplomat, author, and lawyer. Super cool. Super like we were allowed to talk cool stuff there. So that was super fun. So every Monday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and DancingDragons.cc, DancingDragons.cc, DancingDragons.cc. Go check us out over there. So we have life coaches that are health and wellness, right? Or strictly nutrition. Some people are astrological, executive coaches, dating coaches. It runs the gambit. So, you know, we when we see a pretty girl or a guy, so you know, you got that one opportunity, you want to make the most of it. One of the things I tell people is, guys, you see a girl and you want to approach her, you have 2 seconds. You have 2 seconds to approach her, because if you don't, you're going to get into that scarcity, self-doubt mindset. Well, I don't know. What if I say? You just got to go up and do it. Even if you say something awkward, you got to train. Okay, Elijah's already countering.
Hold on. I just want to stamp you right here. Right. I will say this. Right. I've walked around the streets with lots of guys. All right. I will give Will this credit. He is absolutely the smoothest guy I've ever been around women. Like, just approaching women on the street, he does it so smooth. It's not like aggressive. He'll always go up to a random girl and be like, I really like your eyelashes. And then they're like, oh my God, thank you. And that's it. And then he just walks away. Like, he's just so smooth about it. Such a gentleman. But he puts himself out there.
Well, you have to put yourself out there. I don't think you've ever seen me approach a woman, but I appreciate the vote of confidence there. Man, I definitely don't say eyelashes. Actually, that's one of my the one thing I hate, just a side rant, is the big extra long fake eyelashes. I hate that. I like people with natural eyelashes. Yes. But yeah. So what do you guys think about the 2 seconds? Because I mean, you guys can apply that to pretty much anything in life, I think. What do you guys think about that? Yes. Did I get that right? Wrong? What do you think?
Yeah, I think doing things, not thinking too much about it, action alleviates anxiety. I think you just do it. You just forge ahead and do it. And that helps with procrastination too. But as far as dating goes, I mean, I feel for guys, because, you know, for women, we just go out in the world, we get approached. I mean, I'm married, but you know, when I wasn't, you know, you get approached, we don't have to do that, right? We don't have to put ourselves out there and potentially get rejected. So I admire that it takes a lot of courage for men to do what they have to do right in the world to get a girl. So I always feel, I feel bad, because we don't do that. We just go out and like, hey, we're here, you know, and
when it comes to relationships, typically women are the marketers. They will either put up a pretty picture on Instagram or go to the park in a flowery sundress and maybe open a book and make themselves approachable. But guys, we're the salespeople when it comes to this, and we have to be like, all right, this is why you should like me. But the thing is, it's just, I mean, like me, I have no problem getting on camera. But at first, I didn't. I hated it. I'm not an introverted person, but it's just like getting on camera. That's stupid, right? Like, it's just like takes practice. It's all it is, and it's even more difficult nowadays because men, I mean, there's a Gillette razor company that some guy was about to go walk up and talk to a girl, and the guy was like, hey, don't you talk to a girl. But we're living in a place now where it's like they literally don't want us to procreate, which is a problem, right? So that is one thing that, you know, you're going to have to do. And again, like Elijah says, you don't want to be aggressive. And I feel for girls too, because on the opposite end of things, I mean, I've been out to nightclubs, I've been out to bars, and I've seen some really ridiculous approaches. I've seen women get grabbed on by the arms and other places that we won't talk about here on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and that's it. First of all, you got to get yourself used to approaching women, because if you don't approach a woman, I mean, you're not going to get a woman, right? So that's one thing as far as that goes. And then also maybe you're in a group setting, maybe you have some friends, maybe you're in college, right? And there's people around and you're wondering if that girl likes you. And this is a big tip for guys, because it's tough to just go up and approach a girl. But what you have to realize is the worst she's going to say is, get away from me, loser, right? And that's happened to me many times. But whatever, like, who cares? You're not for everybody, right? And but on the flip side of that coin, I remember 10 years ago, I approached this girl. She was incredibly gorgeous, and she was taken aback. She was like, wow, no one's ever approached me before. And I'm thinking in my head, like, this girl's smoking hot. Like, how has she never been approached? And that's part of the thing too. Men are scared. Men don't want to do it. So your numbers go up. And sometimes even the most beautiful girls, men are intimidated by them, right? So they don't get approached. And
so actually, to jump off of that point, this is going to help you. If you're a single guy, I'm sorry, this isn't really it might work for the ladies. I don't think so though. Maybe if you're like, playing for the other team, so they say, or whatever. But like, if you're in a club or something like that, like a social setting where like people are, trying to pick up girls, the best thing to do is go ask the prettiest girl who you think is the prettiest girl in the place to dance, right? It doesn't matter if you think that she's going to reject you. It doesn't matter if you saw her dancing with another guy. It doesn't matter. If you do that, two things will happen. One, quite often she will say no, but she comes back later in the night, right? Like if you go up and you ask her to dance, right? And then if she says no, all you say is like, well, I'll be around all night. So if you see me and you change your mind, you can just come up, right? She'll come back. No, that's a great tip, Will, right? You don't know what you're talking about. But also, all the other women in the place saw you go and talk to the prettiest girl. And so now they're like, if you come up to them next, they're going to be like, oh, wow, he thinks I'm one of the prettiest girls here. So it's a perfect thing to do. Don't listen to Will. He is dead wrong on
now,
this subject.
Elijah gets this partly right. So the reason that's good is because it shows everybody that, hey, like, I'm a man, I see something that I like, and I'm not afraid to go up, and I have confidence. So that it shows confidence. But I think if a girl turns you down, you should keep moving because there's a whole bunch of other things, right? That's my personal opinion on that. Now, here's a couple things that I want to open up to the ladies too, that I think is good for men and women, and also just to piggyback for men, right? So a lot of the times years ago, I would go out to New York City, and me and my friend were working on a project. And when he would go to work, I would just wander through the streets of New York. I would take the train from Brooklyn, and I would just go up a different street and walk a different street all the way up to Harlem. Super cool, right? And then I realized it's like, hey, there's a ton of girls here, and if I get rejected, who cares? There's a guy wearing all tinfoil right next to me. Nobody's even paying attention. But if I saw a girl and wanted to approach her, I would hit her with a smile first, right? And I give her a semi-flirtatious smile. And if she did not respond, I would not approach. But if she gave me a smile, and she's like, then I would approach. So that's one way to do it. And there's a couple of things I can give you hints before we open up to the floor here. If you want to know who likes you, it could be on a friendship or a relationship level. Typically speaking, but not always, if you're in a group setting, the people will face who they're most attracted to. It could be just Elijah. I'm looking at Elijah. I'm completely heterosexual, but he's charismatic. He's got great stories. He's wrong on a lot of stuff, but he's still an engaging person, right? And then the same thing, one more here, and I know Carrie has a point to this one too, is when you're in a group setting and someone's laughing, the person that person likes the most, you're going to look at them to laugh. So if you're a guy and you're like, oh man, this girl, I wonder what's up, and she's over here, it's happened a million times to me, she's looking at Elijah's luxurious locks, that's not the girl for me. You know what I'm saying? He's married now, ladies, so sucks to be you. All right, so Carrie, what's your thoughts on all that mouth splatter I just splatted?
Right. So it sounds like how do we know if someone's kind of into us, catching the vibe from the initial stages? Something that comes to mind is, yawning is contagious. So I had a friend who, she said she was on a train and she yawned, and then she saw a guy across the seat yawn as well. So he must have been looking at her because now they're both yawning. So if
that is excellent.
If you're not as brave as Will and smiling and winking at someone, because that does take some guts, just yawn and see what happens. And that can work for guys, girls, anyone.
Yeah, and so here's another thing, right? So this might seem kind of like a silly trick, but it's really cool. It actually gives you a lot of information, especially with group dynamics. So like when something funny happens in a group, everybody looks at the person they care about the most when they start laughing. At the initial laugh, right? It's the initial one, because if you're laughing for like a little bit, you might change who you're looking at, right? But as soon as you first start laughing, you can look, right? So if you notice, like there's different things that you can take away. Like if you notice two people in the office, for instance, don't ever talk to each other, like a guy and a girl, And then when somebody tells a joke, they both look at each other when they laugh. They might have an office romance that they're keeping under the table, like they don't, like I'm not
This
saying
is your
like,
opportunity to approach
Yeah.
HR and get them both fired and move up the corporate ladder with Coach Will.
exactly. That's where I was going with this, Will. Exactly. No, but like you can get a bunch of cool information from this trick. Like seriously, pay attention next time you're in a group and people laugh. You can see who cares about who, right? Like the most. Obviously, everybody might care about each other if you're in a big group laughing, right? But it's the people that you're closest to that you tend to look at the most when you first start laughing. Yeah, that's why they have laugh
so
tracks in
can I bring
sitcoms.
up,
It's because it's a very social thing. Yeah, go ahead. I just
So you guys are talking all about how men are constantly coming up to women. Huh? Coach, Eli, did you just say something?
I think I caught up. I
did
think
yeah, you guys
had
are
a-
freezing a little bit too. I don't know if it's my. Oh, so anyway, so I can clean up nice, and I go out with my friends, and there are men who, they're pleasant looking, not my type, and my feeling is I treat everyone like a human being, and if someone who is very attractive that I see in the room sees me dancing with someone or chatting, to me that lets them know I'm approachable. There may be a nice looking man who's got no game. I've dated men like that too, who were so good looking I was bored because women just threw themselves. I was on a date with him once, and this woman came up and say, you're the handsomest man I've ever seen. And I'm like, I'm right here.
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
hysterical.
Wow.
Yeah, chutzpah. And actually after a while I was like, she can have him, because he had no game. He didn't have a lot of personality because he felt he didn't have to. I need personality, if you guys haven't noticed. My point is, women need to show that they are that they aren't bitches, that they're a little more down to earth, that they're open to having conversations, that they can be nice. Just saying.
So let's start with Coach Amy, but I want to focus on the ladies here to get a ladies' perspective. What are some things that guys can, from a guy's perspective, that they can do, and also from a lady's perspective? Like you said earlier, Carrie, it's not really typically in today's society, women aren't approaching like, damn son, you got a fat, you know what I'm saying? It's usually the other way around. So what do women like? And as far as women, what advice would you give women to put themselves out there, because they're not going to be the people typically approaching? Or do you suggest that? Coach Amy, let's start with you and then go in reverse order that way. I don't know if you guys see it that way. Well, then we'll go to Carrie after you.
I think that honestly, the most important thing for me when I was dating was always sense of humor, self-deprecating sense of humor, just funny in general, just showing their humor side. My husband, and he hates when I tell this story, but my husband is a really good looking guy. He works out 2 hours a day, eats super clean. He's real cut, he's built, right? He's really good looking. I worked with him for 2.5 years, and it wasn't until he was very quiet. He was very shy. And until he let me know who he was and let me know, like showed his funny side, I wouldn't give him the time of day. And so he hates when I tell people that, because he's like, I work really hard on myself. Like I'm constantly in the gym, I'm doing all these things. And you tell people like, well, it wasn't until he was funny that I noticed him. And I said, I always noticed you were an attractive guy. I was like, oh, Pete's a good looking guy. But then I was like, you're just a guy I work with. He was so quiet. I knew nothing about him. And then when he actually started to talk to me, he was so funny. I was like, this guy's really attractive. So, and that's why he hates that story. It's the truth. So, I think that just making a girl laugh, and the self-deprecating sense of humor to me is just my favorite. It's just so disarming. So for guys, just do that. And just be authentic, right? It can't be phony. Like, I don't think this about myself, right? It needs to just be genuine. You have to always come across as genuine. For women, I have to piggyback on Rona's comment. how your body language and the look on your face when you are out there looking for someone you need to look approachable. You need to look like, it can't be resting bitch face, RBF, because men aren't going to come and talk to you. So you cut your chances in half. If you do that, right, you just need to have a pleasant look on your face, be smiling, be laughing, be jovial. And that's the energy you're putting out there. So then they think, again, like it's safe to approach. So for women, it's just being aware of how you hold yourself when you're in public places where you could meet someone. I think that's really important because men are looking for those signals. They're looking for the green light.
And, I think that there's like this like weird thing, and I don't want to get into the battle of the sexes or whatever, but like there are some guys that will be like, oh, women don't like nice guys. They only like jerks or something like that. And I think that a big part of that perception comes from exactly what you just said, where it's like a lot of women, even though they're maybe interested in some suitors, right? Like they're out there, but they have like this kind of mean look on their face, or they look like they're unhappy, or they look like they're not in a good mood. And I think a lot of guys take that as a signal like, hey, I shouldn't go talk to her. But guys that don't care if you're in a good mood or not will just be like, I don't care, I'll just go talk to her. And so like they kind of perpetuates that kind of perception where it's like, well, the girls like him because he's a jerk. And it's like, well, no, he just took an opportunity that you missed because you just assumed that she was having a bad day because she wasn't all smiles. So I do think it kind of goes both ways. Like, yes, if you are a woman and you're looking to attract guys, definitely smile. But also, if you're looking for a woman, just because they're not all like smiles, doesn't mean that they're in a bad mood or that you shouldn't go talk to them. Obviously, if they say like, hey, if they're giving you other signals, take the hint, buddy. But,
Yeah. I want to throw this to Carrie with a question too. And this is for everybody, but I think that women do want nice guys, but they don't want a pushover, and they want a man that's able to set healthy boundaries for themselves. Like a girl wants a guy to be a nice guy, but he doesn't want to be. And then women will do a little test to see how far I'm pretty. I've got him in the palm of my hand. A woman doesn't want you, no matter how smart or funny or good looking you are. If she has you in the palm of your hand, I think that's where that's not too good, because it shows like, oh, Carrie, you're the only thing I have going on in my life. I have no ambition. I have no job. Whatever you say, master. Right? What do you ladies think about that?
Exactly. I want someone who's just, for me, that's not masculine. It's not manly. It's like the palm of your hand, they're putty. So to me, that shows off not confident. I want someone I like traditional. So provider, someone's going to handle business, take care of business. That's how my current partner is, or my partner is. So that's what we say we like the bad boys, but no, we want someone who is confident. I wouldn't say.
I've never been attracted to a bad boy in my entire life. Never.
No, that's just, then you got to
deal with down. Two thumbs down to the core of the earth.
How about you, Rona? I'm sure, Rona, you've had one bad boy. Come on. The girls like a bad boy. Come on. There's not one bad boy.
I've got a lot of bad boys. I've dated a lot of Italians, a lot of, a lot of Italians. New York, New Jersey, there's Italians, Jews with some, and some Irish thrown in. So I was just thinking when you were talking about, the masculine, you've heard of the strong silent type. I like the strong spoiling type. I want a strong man who is willing to spoil me.
I love that.
And guys, you guys can not only get her coaching information on
to be fair.
Go ahead. I was just letting them know that you can find them not only for coaching lessons,
I always spoil them.
Well, so actually, that brings up another thing that we haven't really talked about, but this is kind of a psychological life hack. If you are in the dating scene and you don't know your love languages, man, you need to figure that out, right? Because there are 5 love languages. There's a book written about it. You don't need to read the book. You could just Google them. It's really not important to read the book. But there are 5 love languages. I don't know if I can go off the top of my head, but it's like acts of service, affirmations, gifts, right? So Rona's in the gift section. Physical touch, quality time. Did I miss one? Is that 5?
I think you got them.
I think you got them, right? So So there are 5 love languages, right? And so like a lot of times what happens is that like your partner or somebody that you like might have a different love language than you, right? So you'll be like trying to like give them a gift, but they don't, that's not their love language. For you, you're like, why aren't they giving me gifts? Because their love language is quality time. So they spend quality time with you to show that they care. And then you're not getting gifts and you're like, well, they're not showing me how, like, because that's the way that you show that you care. So everybody gives and receives in the same kind of mode. Some people might have multiple love languages, but the point is that keep that as an open mind in relationships, is that actually pinpoint your partner's love language so that you guys understand where each other's coming. So when you want to do something nice for your partner, you do it in their love language, because that's really where the heart of it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And then just to piggyback, I tried to Google this 2 weeks in a row and I can't find it. But when you Google it, it doesn't come up with what I'm searching for. But there's different psychological communication styles. It's going to be like assertive, passive, aggressive. Okay, Carrie, maybe you know about that. But I think that's just as important, if not more important, because my ex would come home and she would cry and she'd be upset. Oh, no, no, no. And I'd be like, okay, well, how are we going to fix this? I'm thinking pragmatically. And she just wanted me to listen, right? So there's different communication styles. Carrie, if you could maybe, I've been Googling this for weeks, so I'm going to write this down. So yeah, Carrie, take it away.
My hack that I came here with was non-violent communication. I always say non-verbal, but that doesn't make sense. So this is approach when you've got the guy, you've got the girl, you've met them on the street, now you're dating them, you're in a conflict, and this can be a way you can approach it. So we have 4 steps. We'll use a real life example. Let's say the guy said he was going to come home at a certain time. He ignored, or he didn't answer his girlfriend's text, and he got home late and she was upset. So instead of her, being reactive and saying, you said you're going to do this, you didn't do this. And then of course her partner's going to be reactive and just defending himself. And now we're fighting and we're not it's not conflict resolution anymore. It's just fighting. So this 4-step technique can help with that non-violent communication. So number 1, you observe. So you say what happened without judgment. So the girlfriend's not going to say, you ignored my text. That has judgment, that has blame in there. You're going to say, you did not answer your text. That's a fact that cannot be argued with. So observe without judgment. Number 2, your feelings. When you did not answer my text, I felt anxious. I felt unsupportive. I felt ignored, whatever. And then step 3, you say what you need. I need clarity. I need to be kept in the loop. I need support. I need communication. And then number 4, you ask for a request. When your coworkers ask you to go out after work, can you just let me know? So we're just trying to neutralize and work towards a solution rather than get the other person on the defense and reactive and fight.
Yeah, it's super important. Oh, go ahead.
No, and sometimes I've heard a lot of girlfriends complain how they'll say, I just wanted to vent and my boyfriend is offering me a solution, which sounds like was kind of your situation, Will.
Yeah, because, one of the differences between men and women is when women make decisions, they use both hemispheres of their brain simultaneously, and men will compartmentalize into one another. It can be a blessing and curse for both men and women. So when we see a woman upset, we're like, okay, well, how do we handle this, right? And sometimes sometimes that might be necessary, but you're right, Carrie, it's so important to learn these communication styles, because sometimes what you're picking up, like sometimes you want to be helpful and you're just being not helpful at all, right? So it's important to understand both of those things. And good point, Elijah, too. I think I got maybe one more point on dating. Do you guys have any other dating advice, or we can switch over to a few other things that can apply anywhere? The last thing I would say as far as dating, I mean, I could go on and on, but one of the things I think is important for a first date is typically guys will plan go to a restaurant or something like that, which is cool. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to the restaurant, but if you're a dude, I would suggest taking her and sitting at the bar, because once you get across the table from somebody, now this also could be a business meeting too, right? It subcommunicates that you are adversaries, right? But if you're both are shoulder to shoulder at the bar or at your Dave and Buster's playing trivia or something like that, that subcommunicates you guys are on the same team. And you want that person on your same team, whether it's your boss or potential business contact or potential love of your life. So I would say that's one other hack that you could do. Do you guys have anything specifically more on dating you guys want to bring up?
Just bouncing off that, like me and my wife, we always sit on the same side of the table at the restaurant. Like we've just always done that.
And people always go, like, whenever I had a girlfriend before, in the 5 months I did have a girlfriend, which I bought from Russia, she would always be like, oh, it's so cute. The old people are standing on the same side of the table. Like, the girls love that, right? So it also helps your chances, I think, too. What about you ladies? You guys have any other tips or tricks when it comes to dating or ideas for guys or girls? And maybe you guys can elaborate on what you can do to be approachable. Obviously, you don't want to have a RBS, but maybe what are some other tips? Go ahead, Rona.
Pull, don't push.
Meaning
you may see somebody who you're attracted to, and you're a little pushy, you're a little overly loud, you want their attention, so you're trying to be flamboyant or something that would make them notice you, as opposed to being subtle and mysterious and pulling them into your aura.
I think that's very important, and that goes to life coaching too, right? And that's a perfect segue, silky segue, as Rona always says, into just promoting Dancing Dragons.
It's the new Dancing Dragons thing. So, guys.
Yeah, everybody's saying it.
Yeah, all the cool kids are. I think Gen Y, XYZ, I think they're using it all the time between Riz and Gats. I don't even know if I could actually say that on YouTube right now, so we're going to hopefully cut that in post. But yeah, I mean, and really what I think is most attractive to everybody, whether you're looking for a partner, whether you're trying to get an interview, the job, win the negotiation, is being the best genuine version of yourself, right? And what a better place to do that than having your own personalized life coach. I say this every week. I'll say it again. If your tummy hurts, you're going to the doctor. If you catch a disorderly, you're going to a lawyer. You only have one life, although I do believe reincarnation is probably true. There's not enough scientific research, although there is some. The University of Virginia has been doing like 6 decades worth of it. It's fascinating stuff. But even if you do reincarnate, you only get this flesh suit one time. So you want to make the most of it. And now there's people online like Jerry Seinfeld can teach you how to be a comedian, or Bill Clinton be like, I did not inhale. But those are they're just talking to you. There's no interaction whatsoever. So we have a diverse array of life coaches from all backgrounds that can tailor make a plan for you and work with you to help you get where you want to be. Maybe it's eating better. Maybe it's finding that guy or girl because you're already super successful in business, or maybe you want to rise the corporate ladder or start your own business, right? So check out DancingDragons.cc, 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 and here live, like, share, and subscribe. We're going to be here live every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, so stay tuned for that. Do you guys have anything more on dating? Because I have a few, or anything all in general.
So before we move forward on dating, we did get a comment on YouTube from the tribe here, and they say, like, what about generosity? I think that they commented this when we were talking about, like, nice guys versus like jerks or whatever, right? And so I just want to say, like, I actually differentiate it. I think nice is a bad thing to be. I prefer to be kind, right? So I'm a kind person. I'm not nice, right? I think like nice insinuates that you behave the way you think other people want you to behave. Yes. Right?
I agree 100%. I agree with you, Eli. What's wrong with this?
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Somebody put this in, timestamp this in the comments.
I think that's what nice implies, where it's like, that's almost manipulative in a way, right? Where it's like, I'm not nice. Like some people can, be a little bit upset when I tell them the truth. I can be a highly disagreeable person, right? So, but, I am a kind person. Like generosity definitely falls under that category. Like I like to think of myself as a generous person, right? I do feel like I treat people very well. And I think it's a very good thing to be kind. I think it's almost a bad thing to be nice. I don't know if anybody else besides Rona has like a contrary opinion to that. But.
Well, I think you're right. I think this is kind of a thin line too, right? Because Rona wants to be like, and Carrie, right? They want somebody that's going to protect and provide for them. But at the same time, they don't, I'm just guessing here, right? Like that as a man, you have to set the boundaries. Like nowadays, like girls will be like, all right, okay, let's go to Ruth and Chris on your first date, right? Some of that should be earned. I think a man should be generous, but it should also, and I'm not saying to go cheap on a first date with somebody that you like, right? But also, like, it's a difference of like being a tryhard. Like, you don't maybe want to show up with a limo and flowers to a first date, right? That's kind of weird, right? I've done that before. I literally did that, and my mom was pretty off-put by the whole situation. But that's neither here nor there. That's why I got into life coaching. That's totally kidding. But yeah. So there's a difference. And sometimes men will just be like, oh, I'll do this, or I want to marry you first off the bat. Okay, actually, before we change subjects, I want to hear this. I usually ask all the women that I've ever met, ladies, and obviously we're on YouTube and LinkedIn and all these other platforms, so we can't say certain words, right? But what are some of the best, worst, and craziest approaches and pickup lines you got? I think we can all get a laugh from the craziest, but I think maybe guys could learn something from some of the approaches that you have found cool.
Oh, I got the best
girls
pickup
always
line.
say this. Girls be like, I don't know. When guys go up to guys all the time,
my ex-husband had his tour manager ask me out for him.
Wow. Was that a cool or a bad thing?
Well, it was very different. I was a little put off at first, but Russ had to go to Europe, and the tour manager invited me to a gig for another artist that he handled, and it was in New York at the time. I was living there, and he was like talking up Russ. My ex-husband, for those of you who don't know, which I don't think anybody knows, is a contemporary jazz recording artist. He has a group called the Rippingtons, and when the wave was jazz out here, they would play. But usually he was known. He was fairly well known. Anyway, and I'm a rock and roll baby. I like Bruce Springsteen and stuff. So I happened to go to one of his concerts, and he pursued me. So he didn't want to lose his chance. So that's why he had his tour manager kind of just make sure I wasn't taken by anybody before I got back. So that's why I appreciated it and didn't think he was an idiot for like, you can't tell me yourself, because he wasn't there. So that's my best goal.
Cool. Yeah, that's a valid exception, and that's pretty cool too, because he's like, oh, I have my tour manager approach you. 50 Cent did that to me and some of the ladies back in the day, and we went to the hotel party. All right, so ladies, any ideas on good ideas for approaches to men, right? I would say in general, don't use a pickup line. It's just stupid and sounds rehearsed, right? And the thing is too, it's like you can say a pickup line. Like there are some really good pickup lines and openers, but like if you're not saying it with confidence, then it doesn't make a difference, right? I could have the world's best pickup line, right? That would figure out the female brain, if that ever such a thing existed. But if I'm like, oh, excuse me, right, it's not going to work. So what would you got? Do you guys have any advice for guys trying to approach females?
Yeah, ask for directions. Like, don't do a pickup line. Do something that's not that they're not going. That's going to not put them like on their guard as before, like disarm them. Because when I'm not single, so when I go out alone, I feel like a target, and I think I intentionally put on my RBF and to put my my signals out, thorns not to come near me, because I just feel like a target. And single women, I think, or just women in general, feel like that. They're just always targeted and they get annoyed by it. So if a guy comes up to them, they're like, oh no, here we go again. But if they ask for directions, or if they ask, not like, what are you reading? Like, that's annoying. Like, don't ask like, oh, what you doing? Like, not like that, but something that doesn't seem that you're interested. And then you can use, body language to see, are they leaning towards you? Are they smiling? Does it look like they're checking you out? You can put that feeler in, a neutral feeler, because if it looks like they're not into you, you just ask for directions. You didn't put yourself out there. You were fine.
Any thoughts on that, Coach Amy?
I like that approach. I mean, for me, the best ones were just like authentic, genuine guys that show humility, and they say something that just makes me laugh. If I can just sense it's definitely not a pickup line, not some rehearsed pickup line. Those are just the worst. To your point, Coach Will, they never work. But yeah, it's just them being genuinely themselves and asking me genuine, just questions, general conversation, it's very disarming, and it's easy to break the ice that way, in my opinion.
It's funny that you ladies say that, because one of the most successful pickup artists of all time has a whole blueprint. And I've read all the dating coaches. I've taken all of their classes. Like I know what everyone says. Some people are different. There's one guy who's like, oh, I'll never buy a woman a drink because that says that I'm below a woman. And some guy says you always have to buy the drink. So I think it's obviously a little more nuanced to that. But I think to your point, one of the ways he's successful is if he approaches typically women out, he'd be like, oh, did you see what happened over there? Right? He won't ask for directions. He'd be like, oh, did you guys just hear about that fight? Or, oh, do you see that dude with the thing? And just get him talking on some regular stuff. And then if the vibe's there, then you can maybe ask. I'm old school, and I had to learn myself recently that you don't ask for the phone number anymore. You have to ask for the Snap or the Instagram or whatever. But I don't know. So what I'll do is I'll silkily segue into the next psychological, wow, I can say that 7 times fast, hack that you can use anywhere. And it's called the anchoring effect, right? So nowadays, right, if there's a girl that I'm talking to online or something like that, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll use the anchoring effect. And I would like to get you guys take on this, but I'll say it was like, oh, would you like my Snap or my number? Because I don't really want to give out my number like that first, right? I want them to go to my Snap, right? There's a reason for that, right? But anyway, so they're going to go to the Snap. Like if you're at a restaurant and the waiter's like, oh, well, today we have the prime rib, we have the smoked salmon, we have this and that. The brain remembers the first thing. So the anchoring effect, if you guys aren't familiar watching at home, basically the first thing you hear sticks in your mind more than what is said afterwards, right? And so corporations and salespeople will use that. So sometimes you'll walk into a store and you'll see a jacket that's, or let's keep the restaurant, right? You're at the restaurant and you open it up and it's like, oh man, the surf and turf, that's $90. But then afterwards you see, oh, well, look, hey, what did I used to eat when I wasn't vegan? The beef and whatever you kids eat out there nowadays is much cheaper. And so you look at that, well, wow, this is not $1,000, right? My fried tofu was a lot cheaper than that. So it can be used in a number of ways. And that's one of the ways you can use it with dating. What do you guys have to say, starting with Coach Amy on the anchoring effect?
Yeah, I like that idea, actually. I think that's a good, like the first thing you say, I think that's a good psychological, can we circle back? Psychological life hack. I'm trying to think of an example of that when that's happened to me in my own life. I can't come up with one off the top of my head.
Well, another thing that you can do too is with salary negotiations too, right? And sometimes the company will try to lowball you. But if you establish it's same thing, like I'd be like, hey, Eliza, let me borrow $500. And he'd be like, you're crazy. I'd be like, let me borrow 20 though. And he'd be like, all right, cool. Right. So that's another way that you can kind of use the anchoring effect.
So that's actually, the anchoring effect kind of feels like it's attached a lot to the halo effect, right? Where it's like that first idea you get in your head kind of tends to stick, right? So the halo effect is another thing to really keep in mind. And basically it's just, have a good first impression, right? Because whatever you do after that first impression gets filtered through, like it becomes, that first impression becomes a filter, right? In the person's mind for everything else that comes afterwards, right? So like if you like me and then I tell a joke about your mom, you'll laugh, right? But if you don't like me and I tell a joke about your mom, you're going to get offended, right? Like it's like that, right? So it's really important. I think a lot of people like kind of like say like, oh, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression and stuff, and they pay it a lot of lip service. But I feel like people don't take it seriously enough. The first impression is very, very important. And then the opposite of the halo effect is obviously the horns effect, right? And it's the same thing. Like once you have a bad first impression, it's really hard to take that taste out of a person's mouth. And so some things that other people might find charming, like when you get that horns effect, like they're going to find it to be like cocky or, distasteful or annoying or something like that. Right. So, that's just a really important thing is to always make sure you're building. And I used to do sales, and a lot of salespeople, we did door-to-door sales, walking into businesses, cold calling. And a lot of salespeople, they would like be frowning because, it's our job going door to door. Sometimes it's raining, so you're having like a bad day. You're walking in a suit. It might be hot out, something like that. And you're kind of like showing your body language as you walk up to this person's door and they have a giant glass front. Like they could see you coming for 5 minutes that you're walking down their parking lot. And then you walk in the door and all of a sudden you turn on this giant smile and you're like, hi, my name's Elijah, and they're like, all right, this person's fake as hell, and that's their first impression. So be very cognizant of when your first impression starts, right? Like your first impression might be an email. It might be you not showing up to a meeting. So you don't even know it's your first impression, right? So just keep that in mind. Be very cognizant of where your first impression starts and make sure it's a good one.
Yeah, totally agree. The halo versus horns effect is really important. And that's why I wear a suit all the time. I try to smell good. I try to have good posture. I try to smile a lot because people, for better or worse, they're going to start associating things about me that as opposed to if I was wearing a Dallas Cowboys jersey, right? Which is Elijah's favorite team. And so it's just these little things that you can do. And that's on record too. Timestamp that at 1 thing. So we're coming up over an hour here, right? So I got one more. I don't know, 2 more real quick ones. And if I want to open up the floor to see if these guys either have any more or comments on mine and final thoughts. But we're going to be back live again next Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So look forward to that. So there's 2 here that can help. I want to finish off personally with the Zygarnik effect, which I'll explain in the Ben Franklin effect, which I think are pretty cool and you can use on anything. So the Ben Franklin effect says, okay, like I got a crush on Elijah, so I'm gonna like bend over backwards to do favors for him. But it doesn't work that way. Actually, it's called the Ben Franklin effect because Ben Franklin was a member of the Hellfire Club and a weirdo, but he was really good at diplomacy. He was super good at diplomacy. What about those human remains found below his house in Philadelphia? That was weird. But he was super good at diplomacy. And so what he would do, there was one bro, he just couldn't win him over. Everybody loved him, even the young French girls. How did he do it? He was overweight. He wore a coonskin hat. I don't know, but he was good at diplomacy. So he was like, hey, bro, you're super smart, man. Let me borrow that book. And instead of doing a favor, he asked for a favor. Because what that does in someone's brain is like, okay, I'm doing a favor for somebody. I must like them. And then you start to rationalize, oh, yeah, well, I mean, yeah. And then you're actually more likely to get more favors that way and get a relationship with that person as opposed to if you're just simping all over the time, like, oh, you're so cool. So that's one way you can win people over. And then the other one I think is really important is the Zygarnik effect, right? And it's this thing about our brain. We hate, like, our brain hates unfinished things, right? So this is how like Netflix gets you there for like watching 7 seasons of I don't know, what do you kids watch? Any show, right? Because you're like, oh man, I want to finish this, or there's a cliffhanger and you don't want to let it go. That's why sometimes I'll be watching a documentary for like, those compilation 10 hours ones. And I'm like, man, this is starting to suck, but I'm 7.5 hours in. I'm not going to not finish this documentary. So there's ways that, yeah. Say that again. The sunken cost fallacy, right? Yeah, exactly. And that's something that we could do with an old car, maybe an old girlfriend, right? It can happen in any relationship. It can happen in your job. It's like, well, I've been here for 20 years. Meanwhile, you could raise yourself up. So in order to trick your brain to do that, to actually finish these things, one, that's why Think and Grow Rich, he went around and studied the habits of all the rich and famous people. Everyone's going to tell you to make a list. I will give you 2 caveats to that. Make 2 lists. Make one long list with everything that you need to accomplish, and then daily you put a list of things that are tangible that you can accomplish that very day, because your brain's going to start stressed out over these lists. And another thing is, just like that TV novella that you like, Days of Our Life, that you can't wait to finish. That's why people say, hey, even if you're not going to work out, just go to the gym. Just walk in there. Just walk in the gym. Because then your mind is like, oh man, I hate to have things unfinished, right? So that's a way, like maybe you have a project. Me, I've been sitting on a book that's almost halfway done, more than halfway done. It's like 85% done, right? And if I just pick it up and start it, my brain tonight is going to be like, all right, bro, get on this book, because your brain hates things that are unfinished. And now one of the things that you can do at night to kind of calm yourself down is, because I know for a long time I didn't sleep well, because I would go throughout the whole day, and then I get to bed, and then I'm thinking about corrupt judges and politicians and how messed up this society is and all these other things that I personally have to do with my life. So what you want to do is, before you go to bed, kind of have a brain dump, right? Because it's very difficult to shut your mind off all day, because you wake up, there's TV, social media, radio, coworkers, and usually by the time we hit the bed is like maybe the first time we have to ourselves all day. So then your brain starts processing all these things. So kind of take a brain dump before you go so you can sleep better. And the things that are important to you, make a list of them, because you're going to be upset at yourself that, hey, I haven't finished this list. So guys, any final thoughts on that, or any other psychological hacks and final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
So, go ahead.
I was going to quick piggyback off of the sleep, because actually one of my hacks was unplugging throughout the day. Because as you mentioned, think of it, if you are eating nonstop, you're constantly eating, your digestive system never has a time to digest food, to process it. So if we are constantly consuming information, the only time is when we close our eyes and hit the pillow. That's when your mind is processing those thoughts, and that's when you're trying to go to sleep. So the hack would be to, where can you find those moments in the day to unplug? Can you not listen to the radio in your car? Can you go walk to the dog without your AirPods on? Just little times of the day where maybe you don't have to consume anything.
That is amazing, and I never even thought about that. And I'm thinking, like, maybe you're not a smoker at your job, but you go out and stand in the park yourself on your break. But yeah, that is super important. And I always look at it the same way. It's like, imagine just working out your bicep all day, every day. That's crazy. And that's what we're doing to our brains. So yeah, very cool points. And yeah, guys, check out our coaches at DancingDragons.cc, because I thought I knew every single psychological trick. Just kidding. But I mean, just in this small conversation, I've learned a whole bunch and taken a bunch of notes. So super cool. Thank you for that. Rona,
So
any
what I
final
would say
thoughts?
is,
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Eli, say it, and then I'll go.
Okay,
Yeah, and then
so-
that way you can debate him.
Yeah. So this is the plan here.
I disagree. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So this is where my psychological life hack comes in, and this is false motivation, right? And so the best kind of motivation is fake motivation, right? Like, if you are really motivated for something, if you are like actually genuinely motivated, you have reasons why you're motivated, right? Like there are things that it's like, I want to do this because of X, Y, and Z. But then what happens if something changes with X? Are you still motivated? What happens if something changes with the Y? Maybe that changes the equation. And now you no longer have motivation. That's why fake motivation is so much superior to real motivation. Pretend to be motivated. Now, here's the thing. You might think that's really stupid. You might be thinking, wow,
Really
Elijah, that is the dumbest piece of advice I have ever heard in my life. But I promise you, this is psychological backing. There are plenty of studies that show, right? Like, when you smile, right, your facial structure actually sends signals to your brain to be more happy, right? And when you're happy, you send the signals back, right? It works two ways. It's a two-way street. So when you pretend to be motivated, you actually become motivated. So fake motivation becomes real motivation.
Law of attraction.
And because it's fake motivation, you don't need X, Y, and Z. It's just what you do, right? And I learned this in the Army. And I don't know how often people learn this in the Army, to be honest. I learned this from one man, and he was my drill sergeant in the Army. I don't even remember his name. He wasn't even the drill sergeant from my platoon. I just remember him. He was like smoking us. That's not like, there was no fire involved. They make you do exercises. They call that smoking. Like, they make you do push-ups. When they're punishing you, they yell at you, they punish you. Yeah, that's called smoking. So like, we were like, going through the night. It was like really late at night. You had to like in the mud, rolling around, doing all kinds of stupid stuff. That's what you do at basic training, right? And he like just went on this rant and he was like, fake motivation is better than real motivation. And it just made so much sense to me, right? And I never heard anybody else talk about it really. But I swear to God, if you just force yourself to be motivated, you will live a much happier life. You do have control over your emotions. You are an adult. You can control the muscles in your face, right? Don't think that you are a victim of your emotions. You can control them, right? Fake motivation, better than real motivation.
Rona, what's your retort to that?
Okay, my retort is I kind of and don't agree, but I see. Here's the thing: what you could play with it. Like I said earlier, one of the definitions of play is fun. I hate the word gamification. Gamification doesn't mean that it's fun. And that being said, if you can make a game out of what you're doing, whether it's like when I go running, sometimes if I push myself and I've been running 3 miles each time and I want to go up to 4 and I can see the end and I'm exhausted, I will tell myself, okay, let's see where I get if I do 100 more steps. All right, I'm not quite there. So I make a game out of it. So I can push myself, and that to me is fun. So it's not motivation, and at the same time, it gets me where I want to go because I'm making a fun game out of it. Do you see where
honestly,
I'm going with this?
Honestly, I think you guys are probably both right, and it probably worked for different people, and maybe use a little bit of both, right? And I think the best example of using it for both was having fun, but also having false motivation was NBA Hall of Famer Kevin Garnett. He was incredibly intense, and although he was being playful at certain times, and they nicknamed him the Kid, right? Because he was kind of playful, but he would get locked in, right? And so one time he even made up in his head that a white player on an opposing team called him a racist slur, and that like propelled him. And then his teammate Paul Pierce is like, he didn't call you that. What are you talking about? And he's like, shut up. I'll talk to you after the finals, right? So I think it's a balance, right? You do have to have the play, and you do have to lock in. And a life coach is a perfect person to kind of help delineate that because everybody is a little bit different. Amy, your thoughts on that, and any final thoughts overall, and any hidden nuggets you didn't leave us with this yet?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I want to mention this psychological life hack, which is probably everyone's heard it before, but if you really practice it, which is writing down 3 things you're grateful for right before your head hits the pillow, it does help reset when you go to sleep, you're in that frame of mind. And then I had a friend of mine years ago who, when she gets stuck in traffic because of a car accident, for example, she says to herself over and over again, I'm thankful I'm not the reason for the traffic. And that I really stuck because I thought to myself, wow, that's such a great reframe when you're sitting in traffic because there's an accident. You're just thinking to yourself, if I was one of the cars in the accident, how would I be feeling right now? All I have to do is wait. I'm not hurt. My car's not damaged. No one's been injured. And so anyway, it's just a little reframe for people who get stuck in traffic, which is a super common thing that happens all the time. So she said it to me and it just stuck with me. But the gratitude practice, if you just keep a little notebook by your bed and just write 3 things you're grateful for, they don't have to be massive things, but it really sets the tone for your frame of mind as you hit the pillow.
So Coach Amy,
it could even be super small things. And just what you say, psychology backs this up. Think and Grow Rich, that's what they all say. The law of attraction, gratitude is and that really shifts your mindset. And one shift of mindset takes you out of scarcity to abundance. So that's one big thing I want people to take away. So thank you and Carrie for bringing that up. And Elijah's probably going to poo-poo on that, but
no, not at all. Actually, so that was the second one you brought up that kind of has it's like a periodic thing. Like there's a time in the day, like you walk through the door and you think of it like an affirmation, your head hits the pillow, you think of 3 things. It actually reminds me, there was a movie where there was a couple, it was a comedy movie. I think this couple was supposed to be like very cringy. I forget, I remember the things they said to each other, which I'm not going to say because it's awkward, but like this couple made it a rule, like every time they would part, they would say like 3 things they love about each other. And they would say the cringiest things, like it was a comedy movie, right? And that you were supposed to hate the people, right? But like, I don't know, like it kind of reminds me of that, where it's like, but this is kind of like this cool like little life hack where it's like you have like a trigger to like kind of classically condition yourself to kind of think of positive things, be grateful, right? These are things that we could definitely use more of. And so every single time you see the door, you think of the thing, and then it just kind of becomes this pattern in your life. And eventually it just keeps going, right? So I love that idea. So even if you're not going to use the exact same things Coach Amy's talking about, you can think of different things. Like let's say you're at work. I know I was a translator in the Army, so I translate French and Arabic, right? And so when we were in Arabic class, that class was really stressful, right? And so and then like, you know, we were in the Army, so we still had to do workout and go to the gun range and do all these other things. Plus we had like 7 hours of Arabic class every day. It was kind of crazy, right? So but in the Army, they give you they say that you have a 50-minute bladder. So every hour you got 10 minutes to go use the bathroom, right? They say that they issued you a 50-minute bladder in the Army, right? So so what happens is that like you always get that 10 minutes like at the end. And so what we would do in my class to just keep everybody's like energy up during class so we're not falling asleep, right? Is we would always like do like push-ups or like squats at that, like before we would leave to go use the bathroom or do what else we wanted to do at the end of the hour, right? We would always just do like a quick like 10, 15 push-ups, something like that. And it keeps the blood flowing, right? So like having something like that, you know your day better than we do, right? Like obviously you can choose something generic like walking through a door, but if you have a job where you do something periodically, you can put in one of these things. Oh, I'm going to think of 3 things that I'm grateful for. I know there was a girl I knew in the Army. She hated the Army, right? But lots of people hate the Army that's in the Army. It's perfectly normal. But she would say, I only allow myself to say, I hate the Army 1 time a day, right? And she would literally say it every day, but only once. And she would wait for her moment. And she would be like, oh, this is the moment. This is the moment. I hate the Army. And then that was it, you know, like she would announce it. It was great. Right. So, but you can come up with these things, right? That like throughout the day, you have like this kind of thing. And after a while, it becomes habit. And then habits just become who you are. And then if you're thinking of positive things every time you walk through a doorway, you're going to be that much more of a positive thinker. So I think those are great.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably my most fun episode because I learned so much stuff that I didn't know. So thank you guys, and Elijah for teaching me some of these new hacks. Honestly, I'm gonna start doing the walk through the door immediately. I think that's super cool. And yeah, I mean, that's what you really want to do. Train yourself, get away from that scarcity mindset, and realize, hey, man, like, I mean, every time I go to the gas station, I see the same dude. And the first time I met him, and this became a conversation starter with him to get to know him, he was like, hey, how you doing, man? When people ask me how I'm doing, I say, you know, half the world lives off $2 a day. So I'm doing pretty darn good. Now, I did go to a point where I was like kind of invalidating my own personal problems as like fire and my family's falling apart. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. But it's a good way to keep things in perspective. Like, hey, you know, you're going to the coffee store, like, oh, you know, most people can't even afford this in one day. So I'm pretty grateful for that. And then, so yeah, gratitude is the open door to abundance, and that can really shift everything. I want people to take that too. And then one more thing too, as Carrie brought up, we're at a base level, we're trying to change some of the physiological responses that we have to some of these things. And one thing that they learned recently is psychologically and physiologically speaking, nervousness and excitement are the same thing. They're literally the same thing. So it's up to you in your mind to say, hey, am I going to be nervous and worried about this? Oh, man, I'm nervous about this interview. What if they don't like me? Or, wow, man, I get a chance to have this interview. Oh, man, this is going to be fun. I'm interested. I'm curious. I might meet a cool person, right? So it's just about building that frame in your head. And I really want to say thank you to everybody that's joined us watching at home, and all our excellent panel of coaches. We're going to be back again next Monday, 8:30 p.m. live Eastern Standard Time. You guys can check us out in the interim, DancingDragons.cc, DancingDragons.cc, DancingDragons.cc. And what the cool thing about it is we have such a wide variety of coaches, and maybe you don't need any coaching. Maybe you just want to spoil Rona. You can find her on the website, DancingDragons.cc. No
Yeah.
bad boys, all right? No bad boys, all right?
I don't bend down for anything less than a $10 bill. So there you go.
Whoa, okay. Looks like, I think I will be signing up for some classes, all right, guys? I don't know about that. All right. In all seriousness, guys, we will see you next week. Thank you, guys. And before you go, everybody, like, share, and subscribe. Share this with your friends, right? We all can use coaching. We all can use this type of information. We can all use help being the best versions of ourselves. DancingDragons.cc. We will see you next Monday night. Peace out.
Remember,
folks.
everybody, be excellent to each other.